Hi everyone, and welcome to the next podcast, which is for July. I'm joined here with Alex.
Hello.
And as you know, I am Ashleigh, Citizens Network Connector here at Midland Mencap. Now, first things first, I thought we'd address why we didn't do a podcast for June. And that's because of me, I'm afraid. I've had hand surgery, so unfortunately I've not been in the office, much to everyone's delight at work, because it's been nice and quiet for everyone. But yeah, I thought we'd start by, what have you been doing, Alex?
I have been making the most of the sun when it's been out, and I've been able to bear it. We've been long overdue doing some work on our back garden, so I spent like a day just digging out all the weeds and everything, and then we got all the chairs out the garage, set up like a little fire. So yeah, we've just been sorting out the house and like making the most of that summer productivity that you get.
It's always good, and I absolutely hate the heat and I hate sun, so I've had to suffer it whilst I've been on sick leave, and I've just tried staying indoors as much as possible. But yeah, I felt a bit like a recluse, so I am glad to be back at work, really. So I thought we'd kick off by telling you about the topic of this month's podcast, and that's covering the children and young people's team with disabilities. So I suppose first things first, Alex, why do you think it's important for children and young people to have the right support?
I think it's important because although there are certain resources provided like by schools, for example, with like after school clubs and things, if you've got like very busy parents and you need that extra support when you've got people with like long-term health conditions and disabilities at any age, but especially when you're also very vulnerable and like quite young as a child, like having those extra resources outside of, morning breakfast clubs at school or after school clubs provides an environment for people where they can still, enjoy and do the same kinds of activities, socialise, and have that support, and also provides some like help and support for the parents a lot as well when they've got already an overwhelming like job and lives of their own. Yeah,
definitely. And I think, drawing from my own lived experience with having my disability, I think actually being in an environment where staff are fully aware of my disabilities with my cerebral palsy and then autism that's associated with it, I think they know a lot more about my disability there and then. So as a young person, they were able to provide me with the ability to be able to find coping strategies because they had far more awareness of it than what I did back then. And also, I suppose my question to you, what type of support did Daniel get when he was a child and young person, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, when Dan was growing up, this is just the thing I was going to say, is like as a carer, like as a family carer, as someone like with a sibling with disabilities, it's a big relief to be able to know that there are resources and there's things for like Dan to go to, and I like the people there, the staff there are qualified and know exactly what's going on. It's like a big sigh of relief off your chest that you know that you're like leaving him in the hands of people that understand everything that he needs. Growing up, we were in Derby and there was I think a group called Possibilities there, which Dan went to a lot. Like growing up, he had like a lot of support, luckily, at his college as well. But outside of that kind of educational sort of institute and that one group very similar to Mencap that he went to, there wasn't a lot else around, which is why it's so helpful having things like this service.
Definitely. And I suppose it all comes back to what I keep saying time and time again. It is like a secret society, isn't it? We're in terms of finding information and support available to, your child. And I think whilst I can't necessarily resonate on a personal level, I suppose as a parent, it must be quite difficult, mustn't it? Sort of like navigating your own way, because it's not like once your child has a diagnosis. I know in my parents' case, when they found my diagnosis, there was no information pack that came away with them to sort of like find out different things that I could get involved in, strength and conditioning, physio, for example, to ensure that I had the best opportunities available to me, essentially. So, yeah, I think you are 100% right. These types of services are absolutely essential, both to parents and even for children and young people themselves, really. So, we thought it would be a really good idea to get one of the staff, one of the parents, and also one of the young people who actually uses this service to come on and talk about it, really, so that we can find out firsthand what the children and young people service is all about and what they do. So I think we should start introducing people, shouldn't we?
Let's bring our guests on.
So yeah, let's bring our guests on. So we're joined by Sam and Violet here today. So I suppose the first question that we've got for you two, and this is for both of you, can you tell me a bit about yourself? So if we start with Sam first.
Yeah, so I'm Violet's dad. Nearly 40 years old. Work full time, looking after this one big sister and a dog. And the service has been a big help.
That's great.
In time management.
And what about yourself, Violet? Can you tell me something interesting about you?
So I'm 8 years old and I like football.
Football, and do you support a team? What's your favourite football team?
Man United.
Man United. They're okay, I suppose.
The women's team, you should say, isn't it?
The women's team?
Yeah.
That's good. Women are always best. So I suppose the first question, and we've got 4 questions for you, Violet, today. Is that okay? So the first question for you is, how long have you been coming here to the after school club and the holiday clubs?
For 7 months.
7 months. And have you got a question, Kate? Sorry, Alex?
Yes, so you do a lot of different activities and things here. What are some of your favourite activities you've done and some of your favourite trips you might have been on?
Soft play.
Soft play.
Drayton Manor.
Why do you like soft play?
Because you can jump into the ball pit.
Oh, very nice. Is it very fun, like exciting? Keeps you active, doesn't it? And what about Drayton Manor? What did you enjoy the most about
I
that?
got to go on the roller coaster.
You're a little thrill seeker then? Very nice.
And can you tell me, how do you feel when you're here doing the after school club and the holiday club, Violet?
Happy.
Happy. And why do you feel happy when you're here?
Because all my friends are here.
Yeah. And how many friends have you got, do you think?
5.
5. Are those your main circle of friends? Yeah, that's great. Have you got any more?
So I know you do a lot of different themed activities through the year, across all the different holidays. What's your favourite time of year for activities like that?
Christmas.
Oh, very nice. And why do you like Christmas? Is it all of the presents that you get and the snow and like the festive spirit? It's very nice, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so also, how do the staff make you feel?
Happy.
Happy. And I've got one last question for you, Violet. If there's one thing that the staff could do to make the after school club and the holiday club even better for you, what would you say?
Chocolate cake.
Chocolate cake. Would you like to make the chocolate cake or just have it brought in?
Make the chocolate cake.
You'd like to make the chocolate cake. Well, you know what? I'll be putting that forward to Katie when we're going to interrogate her next. And I'll make that chocolate cake request for you. Is that okay? That's great. Thank you so much for answering those questions. So next we've got some questions for Sam. From a parent's perspective, Sam, in what ways do you think Violet has benefited from attending the after school club and the holiday breaks?
She's more confident in herself, having been here and done the activities, and a mix, 'cause it's a different age group of children with different abilities, so just been exposed to a wider range of people, and she's become more confident in herself. She feels more accepted, I think.
Mm-hmm. And of course, this is mainly for Violet's benefit, but are there any ways in which having this service available has benefited you? How has it benefited you?
Yeah, I mean, I have, neurodiverse condition myself and a physical disability, so having time to catch up on some jobs with one less person in the house to manage and having a small break. I mean, it's not all, I'm not ironing for the whole time that you're down here. But yeah, so it helps. It obviously helps with the pressures of parenting generally and parenting, a child with neurodiverse difficulties. So it's just a bit more time and a bit of a pressure valve release for us all. Just buys a bit of extra.
And I suppose one from me, obviously you've just touched on, which is quite interesting. You yourself have got on neurodiverse as well. Sort of how do you manage parenting, obviously having that similarity with Violet, because I know it's something with my neurodiversity. I'm really jealous because I'm the only one in the family that's got it, so there's no one else that actually understands really what happens in my brain. It's interesting. Like, there's times we bump heads, aren't there, over certain issues, but it's actually having Violet that helped me get diagnosed in later life with it. It was missed for a long time, so she's teaching me stuff about myself and we're learning together. So it's nice that that's happening, and I wish that it'd been picked up like it has for her, for me, and then have access to a service like this, because you can't. It would have helped a little bit more.
A little bit, not knowing quite what's what. So no, it's great. I'm really happy that she's got that group of people to come and spend time with.
And I suppose, I'll throw this question to you as well, because I know that I've asked Violet. How do the staff make you and your wife feel when you come here as well?
Like, really happy to leave her here. I mean, they're all really friendly. They're all fully aware of what her needs are and how to help her while she's here. Like, compared to school, where we've had to really battle and advocate for them to believe what we tell them about her, having a place where she's just accepted for being Violet. She is who she is, and they know what she needs and provide that. It's great. It's really wonderful to see.
That's the thing that I loved the most when I first came down here. Obviously, from the adult Mencap side of things with my brother, is people just kind of understand, because it's that environment already. You've got so many people who themselves have disabilities or are neurodivergent or long-term health conditions that work here. There's not that anxiety of how do I explain this thing?
Yeah, and I think across the board, from a member of staff's point of view as well, having my disabilities and obviously having the staff around me have that understanding, it's just really refreshing actually not to have to explain yourself.
Because in some settings you have to come out almost as having a condition, and sometimes you don't want to, or you don't have to explain it over and over and over again. So that she can come here and we say, she's had a bad day, and unlike school where they say, what do you mean a bad day? Everyone knows what that could mean. Yeah. And how to respond. So no, it's a real safe space for her in more ways than one.
And obviously you've just touched on it being a safe space for Violet. In what ways do the staff cater to Violet's needs?
They're very friendly. They all seem really happy to see her, and then you get feedback at the end about what they've done, how she's reacted. If not, there's ever anything, if she's got overwhelmed, for example, they let you know, it got to this point and that happened, just so that we know how she's going to be when she gets home. What version of Violet is coming home compared to the version that arrived in the morning. And they're really caring. They look like they really like all the staff I've ever met.
Definitely, and I think that's a massive thing, isn't it? When you have got you are neurodivergent, the amount of times that I can come home, and I don't know, back when I was at school, I don't know whether you get this, Violet, but something might have stressed me out, and it could be at the very beginning of the day, and I've managed. I'm like a Coke bottle, so I've managed to suppress it. And then by the end of the day, I've got home and I've like shook that Coke bottle up, and all of a sudden I literally just explode. So unfortunately, my family have always been the ones that have suffered most. Whereas if I had a service like this available to me when I was a child, that potentially would have really benefited my parents.
Yeah, it's like letting the top off the bottle a little bit, so some of the fizz gets out without.
Exactly.
I think from like I've noticed the difference like with my brother, the way that having time away just to defuse in an environment with people that get it, it helps him release like his energy so much more. And so when he's at home, he's a lot more like bright and positive, and even when he's hyper, he's not causing like a lot of trouble or anything. Like, you know, he's very calm. It helps him just release all that energy.
Yeah, I mean, when she comes home from here compared to when she comes home from school, it is night and day different. Like you said, I know we're talking about you and you're here, but you have a tough time at school sometimes, don't you? And they don't always understand, and she can come home quite upset. And the days where either she's been to the weekend sort of short breaks, or she's come here after school, there is a difference. There is a big difference.
Well, one thing I would say, Violet, as an adult that has autism, is if ever you do feel upset during the day, never feel like it's your fault, because at the end of the day, society's not built up for people like us, and we're the ones that have to create that awareness to make it a better place to live in. So that's one of the reasons as to why we've had you on today's podcast, because you're really good at being able to tell us exactly how you feel and everything. So you've done a fantastic job today of being able to answer those questions, because I know it might not be easy. Have you got any other questions, Alex?
On the sort of topic actually of like school versus being here, how does it compare the kind of like after school activities or breaks that Violet might have had at school versus the kind of activities and the environment here? Like, what's the sort of contrast?
Well, at school, they have to cater for everybody all at once, isn't it? And there's some allowances made for children with that neurodiverse extra need, but it can't be as easily applied. You know, they can't do one thing for one, because another child might complain it's not fair. So it's a lot more tailored to what each child needs. Like from what I understand, the team that are in know who's coming in, and they make a plan for that child. Whereas at school, I mean, I couldn't be a teacher.
It's like one on 30
kids, 30 different children, and you're trying to manage it all. So, you know, I understand it's not easy for the school to do all the sort of thing that Violet and friends that are in a similar situation might need. Whereas here, it's definitely Violet's in today, that's Violet's plan. And your friend, what's your friend called?
Millie.
Yeah, Kaylee. Something like Kaylee might be, and she'll have her own thing, and that can't be done.
Yeah.
At school.
Yeah, and I suppose one of my last questions, and then I've got one for both of you before we finish, is what would you say to any parents, Sam, considering using this service, but they might be a little bit apprehensive?
It's one of the best things we did for her. That, you have to go through an application to do it, but it's absolutely 100% worth doing. It's a shame it's not more widely known. Like, we only found out through knowing people, and I suppose that's something for Mencap to put themselves out more if they can.
Yeah, creating more awareness.
When we had Violet's diagnosis at 4, the NHS was like, okay, let's see, good luck, almost. Talk to the school, and yeah. So having this, obviously the pandemic got in the way. But it's been great. We've learnt a lot more since you started coming here, haven't we? And the interactions that we've had compared to what the school have been able to do.
That's great. And one last question for you both. This is a really hard one. Are you ready? If you could sum up the Children's and Young People Service in 3 words, what 3 words would you both use?
First, I say safe, inclusive and personalised.
What about you, Violet? What 3 words would you use to describe the holiday club and the after school club to any of your friends?
Safe, happy, and joyful.
Those are 3 really good words. Thank you both so much for taking the time to speak with us today. I know it's not easy, and I know that it can sometimes be a bit daunting with all of this stuff in the way, but you've done so well. So thank you so much, Violet, today. And thank you, Sam, as well. So we're joined here by Katie Wilkins today, who is, what's your job title, Katie?
So I am the Children and Young People's Operation Manager for Midland Mencap.
And can you tell us a little bit about yourself to start before we start interrogating, please?
Oh, where do I start? So I have been at Midland Mencap for just over a year now, and before I came to Midland Mencap, I've worked in children's homes, I've worked on cruise ships, I've worked in nurseries. So my background's all very much like childcare, early years, special education needs.
And I suppose next question is, what is the CYP service and what does it actually do?
So the CYP service is quite unique and special to children with learning disabilities, children with life-limiting conditions, and what we try and offer is like a safe space for our children to come and have some play, some freedom, and basically just in a safe space for them to express themselves. And what we do is we offer respite short sessions, we call them short break sessions, and they are 5.5 hours long, and it's just a lovely day for the children to come and play. We do lots of sensory based activities, all child led. We do themes, so we celebrated the King's Coronation, we celebrated Eid, and we celebrate obviously Christmas, and moving into the summer we're looking at a sports week and things like that. So that's all tailored to our children's needs, their interests, and obviously all sensory elements so that it can, I've messed that up, but all children can basically just express themselves in a safe space with qualified and trained staff. All children have a one-to-one support staff, so that they've got that interaction throughout the session, and we do it all year round, weekends, and in the school holidays we put extra sessions on so that we can offer a little bit more respite for families and the children as well.
It's really fantastic, like how much you do. Like when I was reading through everything that you provide, like the fact that you provide so much support on the weekends, as well as just like that after school like sort of support that schools provide, because that's the time I think when a lot of parents can be stuck, especially if you've got like abnormal work schedules and stuff like that. Having that little like break on the weekend and having something for the kids to actually do on the weekend is really fantastic. From sort of, I asked Violet this question, but from the perspective of actually being involved with sort of setting up these kind of events and activities, is there anything that you yourself like look forward to doing the most, like any particular time of year or any particular like club or session?
So I think for myself, I've only obviously been here a year, so you've seen like a whole year worth of activities and school holidays. I think the whole children's team are really excited for the summer. Obviously 6 weeks of just fun with all the children. We enjoy taking all the children out on trips and when we do different things as well. And when there are special events, obviously like the King's Coronation and Christmas, it's a really magical and exciting time for the children. We just obviously run with that and celebrate it as much as we can with the children. So I think those are the bits that we really enjoy.
And is there a cost that parents and carers have to pay to access this service at all?
So we charge £15 a session for 5.5 hours, and there's lots of different elements around that, and those are things that we discuss during our assessment process, which we do once a child is ready to become registered with us. So it's £15 for 5.5 hours. And we do try and subsidise trips through different funding for our different providers. So we have like partnerships with the Holiday Activity Fund, which is the HAF programme, which we run through the summer, Easter and Christmas holidays, as well as if we do partnerships with other providers as well. And then if children want to come to our after school club, that's inclusive to everybody. It's not just like especially for Midland Mencap children, but we provide that to outside schools which are locally within the Wheeler Castle area, obviously where we are today. And that charge, there's different charges for that as well. So if people want to ring up and inquire about that, it's either £9.50 or £10.50 for that.
And what does a typical day look like for the CYP service? So, for example, different activities that you guys do, and how do you cater to sensory needs, just as an example, and things like that.
Okay, so a typical day would be the children would come in to the session, we'd greet them in by their allocated support worker for that day. They'd speak to the families or parents who ever bring them in, see how they've been. And then we obviously settle the children into the session. Some take a little bit longer than others, as you can imagine. Some just run straight in, so children like Violet just run straight in and just go straight to the soft play. Others need a little bit more, a bit of TLC before they're ready to start their day. And then the session is completely free flow, so the children can do and access any of the activities at their own leisure. If they want to go to the soft play first or go outside, they can. If they want to go and access the activities, they can. And obviously we all try and socialise and have lunch together over in the little restaurant area that we've got. And then in terms of sensory element of the day, we've obviously got our sensory room here. We've got a sensory tent, different sensory resources for indoors and outdoors. And we try and make edible resources, so obviously a lot of our children, as we know, like to put things in their mouth. So we do try and make those as edible as possible, obviously to make them as safe as well, because obviously we like to still make sure everything's safe for the children, creating that safe environment for them to be in and to play in.
I think one of the great things about the way that you have that set up is that a lot of people, especially neurodivergent kids and adults as well, have that attention span issue, and you don't want to be streamlined onto the same activity for that whole time. Being able to have that independence and that liberty to go about and do the things that you want to do is so great.
There's so much to be said for that, because one of my previous roles was actually working at a sports provider, so they'd go out and deliver PE to primary schools across Birmingham, but we'd also deliver holiday clubs. And there was 2 children in particular, although I wouldn't do the delivery side of things, there was 2 children in particular that were just completely segregated and isolated. So we put them all into groups, for example, depending on their age range. And obviously the coaches would do different activities throughout the day, sporting activities. And as we know, quite a lot of neurodivergent people, but especially children, have their own specific sort of interests. So there was one of them, and he'd religiously bring Thomas the Tank Engine in all the time, and the other staff there were like, no, we're not doing this, this isn't fitting in line with what we do and operate as an activity provider. It's sport, not sort of sitting down and playing with Thomas the Tank Engine. And it took, for me, obviously with my neurodivergency as well, to be able to say, no, he needs a mat putting in the corner, and if I have to sit downstairs with him to make sure that he's safe, then that's what needs to be done, because that's how he feels safe.
And I feel Sam and Violet kind of summed it up really well. Violet goes to school, and obviously children have to go through the education system and get an education. However, I think sometimes things are kind of lost along the way. There's all these standards and what organisations have to want to fit this ideal, but actually, are we listening to the voice of the child? Are we listening to the young person? What is it what they need? And obviously Sam shared as a parent that obviously we can meet those individual needs of Violet and other children when they come to our sessions, and that's what we're all about.
And I think it's having those realistic expectations, isn't it? One of the things that I always found really frustrating when I was at school was the fact, because of my brain damage, the brain damage is on the left side of the brain. So that's the side of the brain that controls like mathematics.
Yeah.
So I'm awful with maths naturally. So sort of like I had that expectation on me to get at least a C in maths, and in my head it was sort of imprinted because of the pressure. You know, if I didn't get a C in maths, that was my life over because I'm never going to get a career or anything. And my mum actually put it very simply after I'd finished school, and I was actually predicted an F, and I'd actually got a D. So, and that was like through real hard work. So even for me, that was like, a D was absolutely fantastic, but I was distraught because it just wasn't a C. And she'd put it really simplistic that, you know, I couldn't really do PE, so it was like a sports college as well. My school was, so they would never expect me to run track or anything. So why are they expecting me to get a C in something like maths when they know that there's that brain damage there that affects something like sequences?
Yeah, and it's like being realistic, isn't it? Being realistic, using what you've got and saying, right, this is how this child learns or plays or how they enjoy. And it's adapting it and just going with it and letting them use that to develop their own skills and social abilities and all of those things and aspects to help them develop for when they ultimately do leave school and go into the big world.
I think like that's the sort of ironic thing about the way that the school system and the other sort of resources that it provides. There's a sort of irony in how it's so standardised to attempt to make it so applicable to everyone, as many people as possible, that in that kind of rigid standardisation of trying to be like, well, no, you've got to do this activity, and no, you have to try and go down this particular route and do X, Y, and Z.
Absolutely.
That it then excludes like the people that can't fit into that standardisation.
And then it makes you feel weird as a result, which shouldn't be the case. And I think, as I said with Sam and Violet here, like if there was something like this available to me when I was a child and young person, I think it would have made a huge difference in terms of the length of time it's taken for me to get to full acceptance of my disability. I didn't actually meet anyone with a disability until I was 14, 15, and that was just by going onto the competition circuit. So that was when it first opened my eyes up. Actually, there's so many people with disabilities, like this is absolutely amazing. But up until that point, I'd never ever met anyone else with a disability. So I really felt like the odd one out in school. I was the only one in school with a disability. And everything until, you know, higher up in secondary school.
It's a very sort of isolating experience. And it's interesting actually, like sort of as things progress and as more resources become available, like services like again Mencap and like CYP, that a lot of the people that I went to school with, even having like a sibling with disabilities and having a sort of fairly decent awareness for my age. Like a lot of my closest friends from school have now, as adults, been diagnosed with like neurodivergencies and things that I didn't even realise that they had, and they didn't even realise they had because there was nothing there for them to have that realisation. They just kind of didn't fit in, were isolated from the sort of masses of people in our year. And then suffered the sort of social consequences of that until eventually they came to that like realisation later on.
Yeah, and I think that's why you know, like Midland Mencap, the children's service is so special. Like it is so unique because we celebrate all those children. We can give them those experiences that, like years ago when I was at school, I don't have like any disabilities, but I've got friends who have them. And growing up at school, it was like, the naughty child to get out of the class, and they was then obviously lost out on some of their education. Whereas now, these children are so, like, they are celebrated, especially here, and we can let them just run with their, like, imaginations and their needs, and just let them express themselves in a free, safe space. And I think that's why what we do really well here, and I think it's important that we obviously, you know, share it with everybody, and get it out there a bit more, as what Sam said. It doesn't need to be we do need to get out there more.
Definitely. I mean, one of the things, obviously, there's no doubt you are a fantastic service, but you know, we've had that interview with Violet, and she did say she's looking for some chocolate cake involved in it.
I know, she did mention it to me with a big wink. So we might have a bit of a bake-off.
Yeah.
CYP bake-off maybe, get everyone involved.
And, you know, on a personal level, if you could invite me to judge that as well.
I knew you was going to say
I
that.
would happily stand in for a second judge.
Anywhere there's cake involved, I knew you would want to come out. Maybe we can make it happen.
I think we should.
Definitely.
I think we should actually do a follow-up one.
Just in case.
Just in case. Yeah, just to make sure it all tastes okay.
I've never heard of a bit of extra chocolate cake.
Why not?
Definitely. So, how can parents find out more about the service, Katie?
So, if parents want to find out more about our service and obviously families, what they can do is they can go on our website. So, it's obviously Midland Mencap website or our social medias and search the Children and Young People Service. They can find out some more information by emailing cypinquiries@midlandmencap.org.uk, or they can call us at head office on our numbers, which is obviously on all our social media pages because I can't remember it off the top of my head, and then get directed to the children's team.
So just to clarify, the number which is on our lanyard.
Oh yeah, it's around my neck. I always forget that.
So it's 0121 442 2944, just for anyone who wants to call us at head office as well. And I suppose we've got time for one or two more questions. Do you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, I was going to ask, we've spoken a lot about the benefits that the CYP provides, but from your sort of perspective and the involvement that you have, like yourself, what's the most rewarding part of this, like being involved in the CYP for you?
So for me, I think it's I've always been big on any role I've been in, like the parent-family partnership, and hearing what the children get from it, like the children's voice, you know, what is it they're enjoying. So just sitting, you know, listening to Sam and Violet and hearing their feedback, that's just, you know, it's just the cherry on the cake, isn't it? It makes everything you do, all the hard work that happens behind the scenes that the team do, it all makes it worthwhile, and that's what we're here for. We're here for the children and the families, and that's what I love about this job.
Definitely. So I suppose it's only fair to wrap it up with asking a question that we wrapped up with Sam and Violet, and I'm really hoping that your 3 words are as good as what Violet's were.
So this is the dreaded question.
But if you could describe the CYP service using just 3 words, what would those 3 words be?
See, this is just so hard. It's really hard. Definitely, I can't remember what they said, but definitely safe. Definitely fun. And I would say, and it's not going to be one word, but a place to grow.
That's nice.
Those are
That's so true.
That was okay.
That was brilliant.
That was good.
That's passable.
Does that pass the test?
4 words is passable. 4 words is passable.
4 words is absolutely possible.
That's absolutely great. Thank you so much, Katie,
Thank you.
for taking the time to speak with us today. So I suppose, obviously, to end this month's podcast, we really need to do a quick recap and just have a quick summary with our key takeaways, really. So what would your key takeaway from this be, Alex?
I think my key takeaway from the sort of discussions we've had today is just kind of an emotional response, actually, which is just a sort of relief and a happiness at seeing the service that's available for like the next generation growing up after me, because I'm at Gen Z, you know, but seeing this next generation growing up after me and seeing like so many other neurodivergent like kids that are finally being recognised and finally being given like the support that they need and having just so much available to them. It's amazing for me to see, and seeing how like happy Violet was as well. Like, yeah.
Definitely, and I think, I sort of echo what you've just said. I always say, I do feel very fortunate the fact that I have my physical disability, because if it looks like I'm struggling with something, people are far more likely to rush and help, no matter how frustrating I find it when I just want to tell them to go away. But I suppose from, an invisible disability point of view, it's really not that obvious. There's not enough awareness of it still. But I think for me it is fantastic to see there are services available out there that are able to cater to people's needs when you have neurodivergency. However, token to that, I do think more really does need to be done in terms of creating the overall awareness of all of the amazing services across the whole of the West Midlands, because there is so much available out there, and it all comes back to being a bit of a secret society for parents and even from us guys as professionals, not knowing where we can refer to, and that comes down to actually more co-production, working together and actually being able to cross-refer. So if we've found someone that we're unable to cater for, being able to go, what, we're really unable to do this for you, like, I hear what you're saying, but we know based on our external relationships, whether that's Autism West Midlands as an example, they would suit your needs to an absolute T. Here's a referral, so you as a parent don't even have to think about that. You can just focus on parenting and that's it. You don't have to dig for any of the information, and you don't have to be an Inspector Morse about it. Here's the information for you on a plate. So that's probably my key takeaway really. But thank you everyone for listening today, and if you do have any further questions, Katie has given you her email address for the CYP team, but we will also put that information on the bottom of this video today, so that you have access to all of that as well. So thank you everyone, and we'll see you next time.